Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I'm here with Sonja today, and Sonja is a strategic visionary, an art winning innovation executive, artist, executive coach, and a facilitator of beautiful, literally beautiful transformative experiences. I've been able to join them and co-facilitate with her, and it's always just been an absolute joy. And yeah, Sonja is originally from Belgrade. She has been on a nomadic journey for the past 30 years. So we're going to learn a lot today. And she's been living in between places and responding to questions of identity and belonging, two very big and important topics, especially in our time right now. And in her work, she combines more than 20 years of experience in innovation and business transformation with her passion for learning, commitment to system change, deep spirituality, and emerging visual art practices. She is the founder of Revillage, which we will hear all about from her today, an initiative focused on reimagining the future through creative, interdisciplinary experiences. This is one of the things that we also played in together. Her artwork reflects her many inner worlds and has been exhibited in Italy, Spain, France, and Uruguay. It's incredible because her story around art and how she started pursuing arts, it's going to blow you away. So you're in for a big treat today. Put on your headphones, walk in the park, sit on your couch, make a cozy cacao or a coffee or a matcha or whatever you're into, and take a deep breath and listen. Get inspired. So, Sonja, thank you so much for being here today. This has been a long time coming because every time Sonja and I speak on the phone, at the end of the call of a very philosophical journey, we realize, shoot, we should have recorded this. So, this has been a long time coming. And I'm so glad that you're here. So, thank you for being here, Sonja. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I hope today is as good as our many conversations we have had in the past.
For
I'm
sure,
very
I'm
good.
sure.
I'm very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And now, Sonja, the podcast is called Inner Evolution for a reason, because I'm just so passionate about sharing with the listeners stories of people who dare to take a leap for themselves and trust their intuition and share stories from their in between or stories for other people's in between so that people can get inspired and also motivated and daring enough to take little steps or big steps for themselves in their life and begin to honor their intuition and their own needs. So it's an honor for me to be here today, also selfishly, ask you some questions and connect to you. I would love for you to give us some context about who you are in your own words and what you focus on right now as an artist and innovation facilitator, executive coach, before we dive into your background.
I think the answer is changing on a daily basis in terms of who I am and what I'm striving to do. I think what gives me strength is my vision. I think my vision is unwavering. How I get there is changing, maybe. So maybe I speak about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe we explain this a little bit more when we talk about my background because it's all very much connected. But after a long, long journey, I'm finally in a place where nothing makes sense and everything makes sense at the same time. I'm very clear what I need to do. I'm in Belgrade at the moment visiting with my 90-year-old dad who in his old age has become a little Buddha and a complete source of inspiration and wisdom for me. And I was in his house the other day looking through some of my mom's journal. She hasn't been around for a long time now, and was reading about free radicals because my mom was a professor. She was teaching chemistry and physics. She was a scientist and an artist and a yogi. So very creative
Wow.
and super inspirational person that was a huge source of admiration and inspiration and love for me growing up. And it got me thinking about the place I'm finding myself in. I have left everything that I knew about my life, even more so in the last year, because I have left my house behind and I'm now exploring for the first time in my life what it looks like to live on my own with no children or no full-time job or no anchor of any sort. And this metaphor of a free radical, the one that's on the outer rim of the atom, really spoke to me, because it creates sometimes a lot of chaos, but it also brings the energy that we need in order to move. And so it's that chain reaction that I'm hoping to create at the moment. And being on the outskirts of the system at the moment gives me perspective. I can look back in. I still understand what is going on because I have been part of that system for over 50 years. I lived that life. I still speak the language. I'm doing my best to forget it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But I'm also now far enough into this journey to also start to look out there. And that's the place that I'm really enjoying at the moment because it's full of possibility. And I want to explore that more and more through my own art practice, but also with others. And Revillage for me, that's why I started Revillage, to bring people together, to reimagine what are the possibilities, what is really present. We talk so much about presence, but we talk about presence, or when our spiritual teachers talk about presence, it's often in a context of accepting what is. But who is to define what is? There's so many realities that are available to us energetically, spiritually, emotionally, all the time. And I want to explore that. I am finally at peace with myself, and that makes me really in a good place to explore with others on my own. What is the life that we really want to live? What does it really mean to be free for me, for you, for us together? What can we create if we use that frequency of freedom in our life, if we become playful again, if we really connect to our creativity? What is the future we can leave behind? What is the reality that we can start to create? And my vision is really like 100 years from now. I don't need to achieve it in my lifetime. I'm super happy about that. But that gives me permission to just go and do crazy stuff and play. There is no more pressure to deliver anything, to impress anyone. I'm not focused on solutions because I don't think there are solutions to what we are experiencing right now in the system. But then it's a beautiful invitation to really go, to be out there, to be as creative as we can and see what else, and who else can we be.
I love this. I have goosebumps all over my body, and you are a free radical. Like, there couldn't be a better
I know.
metaphor,
I
you
was like,
know?
okay, this is me. I was reading and I'm like, okay, mom, thank you for leaving this.
I love this. And I also love that you allowed the synchronicity or this like seeing and listening, because sometimes when we're in this space of being a free radical, we may feel confused, we may feel lost, out of control, or at a loss of control, right? And it sounds like you have come to a place where you can actually allow the uncertainty to feel safe for you. Could you talk a little bit about how you got there?
Yeah. But just to start with that, I was writing in my journal this morning, this notion that we want to fight uncertainty with certainty is absurd, right? So whatever structures, whatever rules, whatever, 7 steps to nirvana, whatever we come up with is still structure. We are still trying to make it certain, and it's uncertain. So by definition, it's asking us to get lost, to forget, to unlearn. I'm such a city girl. I only lived in big places. And this past year, I've been in all these amazing places around the world. And for the last 2 months in this, not even village, outside of the village in Provence, you've been to the place, what I'm describing. You step outside and you're in the gardens, you're surrounded by vineyards. You're really like in sync with nature. And I am amazed at how quickly I was able to adapt to that. Someone who has never lived that life, to a point where I was in London last week for the first time this year, and I didn't know how to function in a city where I lived 20 years. I have forgotten. And
Maybe that's healthy, no?
it was so amazing. The morning I had to go to the airport, I was like, I'm not sure I know how to do this anymore. And it really
Wow.
got me thinking, if I can forget this, how amazing. That creates space for learning something new, for looking at everything that we are facing with a completely fresh perspective that's not, filtered through any of my lenses anymore, not through my trauma, not through my, need to fit in or belong, or not through my story of identity, who I am, and none of that. It's like I'm looking at this fresh. Okay, I'm in place A. I need to get to place B. I have not done this before. Okay, let's go and see.
I
It's a
love that.
it's a
Exactly, because you allow yourself that childlike curiosity, childlike wonder.
Last year I was at the airport in Belgrade and I was reading something or writing for my blog, and I completely missed the flight, and I was like, okay, fine, there is a reason for that, so I'm going to go home back to my dad and I'll catch a flight tomorrow. We are so in this machinery of achievement, doing, hustling. People often ask me, so, why are you doing this? Sell it to me. Why would I come and join? I'm like, I'm not selling anything to anyone. It's like, no, you either resonate with what I'm trying to do, you feel it too, in which case you'll just join, or you will not. It's okay.
Yeah.
There is no pressure. But yeah, it's a beautiful place to be. I have to say, it is so refreshing and so freeing and so inviting.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, as you're speaking about not being part of the system, having been part of the system, but now sort of observing it from the outside without having to change it, change yourself to fit into it, kind of be aggressive towards it, because I feel like there's so many initiatives and things out there that are like, we need to change the system, we need to change everything. And I understand that. And there is definitely the right for this to exist. Everybody has their own way and perspective, but I really, really resonate with what you're saying around, I don't need to destroy the system. I don't even need to be in it anymore. I don't need to even fight it anymore. I just want to create something that's outside of it that may work way better for me, for free souls, let's say, who resonate with your idea of it, and you're magnetized naturally to it, rather than selling or forcing any perspective on anybody. And I think this is like the ultimate idea of inner freedom, because you're no longer trying to fit in or bring people onto your side. Obviously, we're both facilitators and we want people to feel free, but
Yeah.
people will only get there to whatever they deem as free in themselves when they allow themselves to step through the fear rather than around it, right? So fear, I think, is the thing that keeps us wanting to change systems or attack systems or stay in systems. And so I'm really curious, how did you work through your fear and to come where you are right now? Maybe you can be a little more specific and give us like maybe a point in time when you realized, oh, I need change here. Maybe talk a little bit about your journey in the corporate world and
Yeah.
how that system change for you happened within you.
Before I go into the corporate world, I think just for context, right? And you mentioned I've been a nomad for 30 years. I left the country that doesn't exist anymore. So my change started way before any of my career changes or anything that I was doing in corporate world. So when you go through a war and the country that you are born in doesn't exist anymore, that question that puts into questioning everything that you know about the world. It puts into question your sense of identity, your sense of belonging. And I think I left naively back in the 90s thinking I'll just find what I have lost here somewhere else. right? There must be better somewhere else. And I think last year, 30 years of that journey, I realized I came the full circle and realized that what I was looking for just doesn't exist anymore anywhere, that I was definitely born in utopia. And maybe that helps with this big vision because I've seen some parts of that vision already. I lived parts of that vision when I was a child. And I know it's possible. So it gives me, embodied experience of, wait, it doesn't have to be this way. Actually, I remember that it was different. So that's important.
Can you just talk a little bit about how it was different and how it was like?
Well, I think Sweden and Norway have nothing on what I lived in ex-Yugoslavia in terms of human rights, in terms of women's rights, in terms of equality, in terms of standard of living, in terms of amazing education that was free and healthcare, in terms of how easy and generous and kind communities were. So a lot of things that we are trying to build now, I remember. I remember from my childhood, from how my grandparents used to live, from how my parents lived, from how I was brought up, from what my community was like here. War crashed all of that, obviously, and it's not present in what was left of Yugoslavia anymore. But it gave me something. It gave me the stability, that inner stability that I never lost. And I think, spending now some time with my dad, I can see how much it's still alive in him. Even he's pushing 90s and he's still, embodied those values, which is very important to me. He has never wavered. He has gone through a lot in his life, but he has never wavered when it came to really feeling what is right in the world. And that's important, especially nowadays when we are being gaslighted on a scale that we have not seen, which I think it's causing lots of mental health issues because, as we have seen and observed, the evidence that we see with our eyes and ears is being denied on a daily basis, right? But
Yeah.
back to corporate, I have spent most of my career doing transformation, so digital business transformation. I was never hired to do the role that I ended up doing. So the role was always created by me in response to what was needed in the organization. In my last executive role, I ran this massive innovation and transformation program for the biggest education company in the world and really created a movement inside the organization, presenting them with what the alternative to what the organization had at the time was in terms of culture, ways of working, entrepreneurial and innovative spirit. And I learned a lot in terms of community and how we can do things differently from that time. But I also learned what it feels like to live and work in a masculine, toxic masculine dominated culture in which I wasn't realized as a woman at all. I learned how to mimic, how to observe, how to give them what they wanted out of me. I learned to really be self destructive, if I can be honest, because I would wake up. I remember in my last role in New York with great allergic reactions to whatever was going on and would go to emergency room to get a shot and go to the office like that's the normal thing to do. And I worked 17 hours a day. No one ever said, hey, are you sure? This is crazy. I barely spoke to my son, and I'm a single mom. And all of that behavior was rewarded with more money and promotion and tap on the shoulder. So if you rely on those external validation metrics, I had them all. It was all tick the box, amazing apartment, amazing lifestyle. But I was suffering in ways that I didn't even have words for what was going on with me. I was so detached from myself, from what I want out of life, that there was no space for anything, no space for me, no space for, good, healthy habits, no space for love, not even space for the family that I had and wanted to, spend time and dedicate myself to. So it was only when I walk away that this journey in earnest started. And it took a lot out of me. It took a lot
Yeah.
out of me. I think when I left Pearson, I thought, this is going to be a couple months of holiday and of yoga retreats and sleeping. And I did sleep. I think the first few weeks I slept 24/7 almost. And then I started to do some yoga, and my yoga teacher said, well, we can't do yoga because you don't know how to breathe. So this is how bad it was, right? So go back to the basics. I had to learn how to breathe at, I was what, 45. I had to learn how to breathe. I really want to repeat this a couple of times. This is
Yeah.
how bad it is. And this is how bad it is for majority of adults. I still know. We don't know how to breathe. We treat our bodies with such contempt. We don't take care of ourselves. We are constantly in a rush. Last week in London, I was run over by this woman on a bicycle. She ran a red light. She didn't see me. She didn't pay attention to anything. It could have been much worse than what it was. And is this how we want to live? Right? Is this normal? Is this what we consider normal now? So yeah, it's been a journey of, I think almost 8 years, a bit more now, of
Wow.
unlearning everything. And the first probably 2 years, I approached it as I did everything else in my life, a good student. I went to every course, I read every book, I hired every healer. I always joke I must have had 5 or 6 of them on speed dial. I had multiple sessions every day. When you're an achiever, then you're always an achiever, and you think, well, if I
Yeah.
do this faster, or if I invest more in it, it will happen faster. And then I remember this, one of those big moments in life that you never forget was December of 2017, I think. So I was maybe 18 months into this whole big change. And I went to one of my healers and I was telling her everything I'm doing. And she said, maybe you want to slow down. Maybe you don't need to go to 3 healers a day and do all of this. And I got all upset with her as to like she was slowing me down. I was doing so well. And I told her, I can almost smell it, as in that thing that I'm trying to achieve. So I was still trying to achieve something. I was still trying to get to the other side of something. So it wasn't the big career goal anymore, but the mechanism, the structure of my mind hasn't really changed. My habits may have changed, but the structure was very much there, running the show, thinking
Yeah.
there is another peak, another thing to achieve. And so I said, I think I can almost smell it. I'm so close. And the universe looked at me and said, oh, you think you're close? How interesting. Let me show you how close you are.
I love this because I just
Let me show
recorded a
you how
video
close
on
you are.
exactly the same topic yesterday because I went through the same thing. And it's normal, like we come from similar sort of
Mhm.
backgrounds. And what you're saying about, okay, I'm on a timeline here. Let's get this done so I can go on with my life.
Yeah, because you feel
This
like
is
you have
like,
missed so much time, right? You have done it wrong. You're unhappy. You want to fix things. You still think there is something to fix, right? So it's just yourself.
exactly.
So I wasn't trying to fix the organization anymore or the world. I put all that effort and money on this is wrong. I need to do something. I'm
Yeah.
unhappy. I need to fix this. And of course, there is this now whole system that's supportive of that. All these gurus and teachers and healers and all these books on, I've been a lot of them, I have to say, written in the same narrative that everything has been written, in corporate world as well. This notion that you just go into the woods and you emerge a week later and everything is fine in your life, and you know exactly who you are, and here's how you get there, and there are 12 steps, and if you pay for those 12 steps, and that's what people are selling. And for me, that's not very different from what Mackenzie used to sell when I was in corporate world, right?
Exactly.
Yes, it's wrapped in a different clothing, it's a different topic, but again, the structure, the mechanism of I'm going to help you get there, and it's easy. You have nothing to do really. Just follow my 12 steps. Trust me. It's always the external authority that you're being asked to trust. It's massive bypassing. It's like putting a band aid on something without looking deeply inside.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that structure, that ego structure, because that's what it is, has to break. And it doesn't break all at once. It will be so wonderful. It just breaks all at once, and you have only one dark night of the soul, and it's all done after that, and you are sailing through life. But it's not. It happens all the time. And
Exactly.
it's okay. It's really okay. If anything, this process is about really ending the war with ourselves,
In ourselves,
learning how to
exactly.
love every single part of me. Not just the part that I thought, my mom and dad are going to love, or my boyfriend is going to love, or the part that my children may love, not just the roles that fit the narrative that the society wants, but the rest, right?
Yeah.
The things that
Yeah.
maybe we are ashamed of, the things that we don't know how to make peace with, these contradictory feelings that we feel all the time, right? Let me give you another example. My ex-husband just had a heart attack 2 months ago. And we had a very turbulent relationship over the years, and the divorce was horrible and everything. And there were years when we didn't speak to each other. And I was shaken to the core by a possibility of something happening to me. And I realized that after all this work, finally, I can hold that. I can be super emotional and deeply hurt and absolutely like couldn't, even accept a possibility of something happening to him and reach out to him from compassion, and that was fine. And at the same time, that didn't negate what happened in the past. And I didn't, tell to my hurt side, oh, you just need to get over that. No, both of those things can be true.
Can coexist. Yeah.
They can
And
coexist within me. I
yeah.
didn't have to say to myself, well, now you have to get over this. No.
And that's really
I,
maturity, coming to that place where you are able to hold these two things, because then your ego is not anymore stronger, but you're actually more your authentic self, so to say. And you see things more from an observer perspective and get to decide how you act and, what of the feelings you want to actually express or
yeah.
react to, or you get to decide actually how you want to respond, and that's the maturity in it, right? That you don't have to react.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I think this is what creates space for the possibilities I was talking about at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
If you can hold within yourself the polarity of what you're feeling, that you can extend that to others in your life as well. They're
Yeah.
allowed to feel contradictory things as well. And then between those two polar opposites, there is a lot of space to experiment, to see, to try, to see who we are in different circumstances on a different day. We don't have to play the same role over and over and over. We have all these tools that we can be using, right, on a daily
Yeah.
basis. But I think we get so attached to stories. Our identity becomes enmeshed in this story of, I'm a victim, he has hurt me in the past, so I have to hate him, basically, right? But that becomes so limiting. It limits relationships. It
Yeah.
would limit a relationship with my children if I was to insist on, you know, just staying with that story. How would I create space for them to have a relationship with their dad,
Yeah.
or for all of us to have a relationship? And I think it's choosing to say, wait, that story was true back in the day. Maybe there are elements of that story that I'm still attached to, but not the whole story. And maybe over time, I'm not going to be attached to that story at all, and that story is going to go away completely. But there are other stories that we can co create together. We are so much
And
more than one thing that has happened to us. We shouldn't
yeah.
be allowing those things to define our lives.
And that's the freedom, this is like the
Absolutely.
move from a fear state to a love state, actually,
Yeah.
because when we are in the fear mind, when we operate from the ego, from the fear mind, let's say, our nervous system is still in this
Mhm.
very dysregulated state most of the time, and we
Yeah.
are not even able to respond in comparison to react, right? And I think you are still in this fear state when you start healing, but you make healing a job or a to-do list or a thing that needs to happen in a certain timeline, right? Instead of it becoming part of your life's journey, being part of your lifestyle, the way you live, right?
Mm.
And if we live like that, we're still at the mercy of systems,
Yeah.
at the mercy of dependent relationships, bosses, partners, family members, friends that are that we are in dependency with, instead of feeling free in who we are and being interdependent in a healthy, dependable relationship. Like you said, the time that you spent in your early years as a child in Yugoslavia, where people were in community and living from the heart and being interdependent with each other, and I understand you're yawning for that as well. But we learned to achieve this through dependent relationships, through fear, through manipulation, through all those things.
Mm.
And now you saying, okay, my ex-husband had a heart attack and I decided, I'm free enough to care for him and, go there with my children and not say, I don't care, being in that fear response of, now finally, I get him back on whatever. No, you were open hearted and you were able to put your ego aside and say, hey, wow, this actually moves me and I
Yeah.
care. And here we are at the conversation of opening our hearts, right?
Mm.
Because I also, to the things that you said before, I've been thinking a lot about power recently and my relationship to power in the past. I think a lot of women have that we go into business careers, into manager careers, because this is something that feels important and powerful, even if we don't know that we do it. I think, how you shared about, I was a woman in the business world, I was an exec, and, I formed myself to fit into this masculine role, and you
Yeah.
did it all, and you were capable of doing it. The question is, do you need to, or is this your path? Does that feel comfortable to you? And you broke out from it. So I'm really curious also to hear, what is your relationship to power now? Because what you're describing of what you did for your family, for your children, for your ex-husband, that is a different kind of power than the power that you executed in the business world. So I'm curious to hear how
Hugely,
your
hugely.
relationship
I mean,
to power
everything
changed.
has changed. I'm not the same person I was, and it's really bizarre. I don't think I have ever been more interesting than I'm now, but we still live in a system that is rewarding the behavior that I'm rejecting now. And so to compete in that world, right? So when we say, oh, 20% of women are in executive positions, or however many percent nowadays, and how many are board positions, those are all the old metrics, right? Because the type of women who are in those positions are the type of woman I was, right? For you to get in, to be accepted to this club, you need to sell your soul. You need to give up your, one part of you. You need to learn how to become something that you're not, something that can never be intuitive to you. So you need to rely on the system telling you whether you're on the right track or not. And I think the type of power that you're talking about now is realizing that you're whole on your own. You're in complete peace and balance with all parts of yourself, your masculine and your feminine. You understand the important role that feminine has to play, not just in our lives because we are women, but in the world, right? Because the feminine is what allows us to flow, to be creative, to use our imagination. Masculine is there to then execute on that, but they need to work together. One without the other creates the chaos that we have at the moment, right? And it's not even good masculine, that would be something, but it's very toxic masculine that is overriding everything, that is going against nature, that is going against everything that we value in terms of human life as well. And we
Yeah.
need to learn, we need to teach women, especially, how to make peace with their feminine side, how to really embody that, to feel powerful from within. We need to learn, teach men how to use both the feminine and masculine side. And we need to work together to reimagine what the system would look like if it was designed on a very different premise to begin with. Not us trying to fit into their world or them trying to fit into our world, but truly balance between feminine and masculine, where there is space for everyone. where there is space for creativity, where there is space for playfulness, where there is place for uncertainty, because that's part of life. It's
Yeah.
not negative, it's actually super exciting if we know how to work with it, if we learn how to navigate and change the rules as we go about and adapt rules to what we need right now. That's beautiful. That's an
Yeah.
invitation. That's not scary. But if you have rigid
Absolutely.
structures that we are, praying to basically and saying, all these rules and agreements from 200 years ago, they're completely outdated for modern life today, that are not respectful of life, any life
Yeah.
on this planet, we are going to put those on a pedestal and we're going to sacrifice everything inside. Well, that's not normal. That's really not normal. And what's missing is creativity, it's imagination, it's even, space for a possibility of something different.
Yeah.
Look how people are reacting. People are saying, well, but there is no different, right? At the moment, we are choosing between lesser of two evils. So, lesser of two evils at the end is still evil. It's nothing more. It can never be more. But where is the
Yeah.
space for different, for new possibilities, for creativity, for experimentation, for exploration of how do we want to? Are we not supposed to ask ourselves these questions of how do we want to live? Now that
Yeah.
technology has this dominant role in our life, how do we want to live? What are the agreements we want to make between ourselves? If the divorce rates are over 50-60%, what does that mean for the family unit, for how we organize our lives, right? Those are
Yeah.
all the questions we should be asking. If technology has such an important role, if we have access to all this data, what does this mean for education system? We can't be having the education system we had 50 years ago. That doesn't make any sense. What are the skills that we should be teaching our kids? Should we not be experimenting with that? Should we not be having, labs and incubators that are just looking into all these big, meaty social problems from a bigger social, system perspective? That's what's exciting about this moment that we are in now. But to be really able to participate in that conversation, to really run those experiments, the type of work that you and I are talking about now is crucial, right?
Yeah. And
Otherwise, you're not ready to participate. You're still translating, you're still filtering everything through the lens of your conditioning, your trauma, your biases, your belief system, your habits, and you're unable to learn anything new.
But the problem is, I think that many of the decision holders, many people in power, coming back to power, are not open yet for these types of solutions. They're still not seen as these solutions have a very feminine color, feminine approach in them, or a harmonic approach, not just focused on results in the sense of numbers and financial gain.
Mm.
They are often not yet taken seriously. And the people in power haven't done the inner work to actually see and hear and acknowledge the importance of that innovation, let's call it simply. Right? And if those people stay in power, we will not go there because it's way too uncomfortable for them to deal with, and they will not open up to
Agreed.
it because
Agreed.
their hearts are closed, most of theirs.
I agree. And we can get to the heart because I really want to talk about that. I think that's a
Let's
key
talk
question.
about the heart.
But just before that, I think it's very important for us to acknowledge the moment in which we are finding ourselves. Everything you just said is absolutely true. But for someone who has spent so much time in that world, not in political sphere, but in organizations, but the system, the mechanics of how it works is the same, it will not be changed by waiting for these people to change, right? The system is imploding at the moment. Just look what's happening around us and what has been happening the last 4 years. I can't even believe that it's been only 4 years since coronavirus. It feels like it's been 20 years already, and our lives are unrecognizable, and it's getting worse and worse, right? And I'm not a pessimist. This is not, doom and gloom type conversation. This is just acknowledging what is happening around us. The system is crumbling. And the system is reacting as the any system reacts in those moments when it's crumbling. It's trying to self-protect. So those people that you are mentioning are becoming even more close-minded,
Yeah.
in a more defensive, because they feel they have everything to lose. If we
Sure.
wait for them to change, we're going to wait for a very, very, very long time, much more than, just our lifetimes. And then,
Absolutely. And sorry for and for everybody listening, you can imagine this on a small scale when you are about to break through a pattern that you have. Yeah, just to give you a very small example that you can, recognize in yourself. When you're about to break through a pattern and you're triggered in the same pains or wounds all the time again and again and again, maybe your defense system in your body is telling you, I'm not dealing with this. I don't want to hear it. They are guilty, whatever, and this you can imagine at a large scale. So if
yeah.
you're not willing to see yourself in some way or admit something to yourself, no matter how painful or joyful, you will close the door, you will ignore even more, and you will lock the door and throw away the key. And that's exactly what Sonja is describing about what's going on big scale in governments, in regimes around the world.
Yes, because I think this is very important as well. The system is not this abstract container that exists outside of us. We are part of the system. System is us. So can you imagine my conditioning and then your conditioning and then our collective conditioning and all the agreements we have made together? That's the organization, right?
Yeah.
That's set in its ways, that's always been doing business this way. For anyone listening who's been in the business world, we have heard this, right? When you go in and you try to implement something new, oh, no, it's never going to work here. We are special, we are unique. We need to go through all these hoops. We need to take 6 months to make a decision because, there is regulation and there is this and there is that. We are full of these excuses. Let's call them excuses, or things that we believe to be true, right? That we are defending because our sense of identity is now enmeshed in that collective agreement. So we don't see a way out. It has to be that way. And that's just a small example. And so it will not be changed if we wait for those people to change. It will also not be changed in a way that we're trying to change it right now, which is, throw everything at it, using the same tools we have been using for however many years, working on in adjacent space to what is happening. As Audre Lorde said, you can't bring down master's house by using master's tools. At the moment, only master's tools are available. That's what we have, right? So you want to change the system, but you want to use the system to change the system. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. And I think we need examples of different agreements
Yeah.
we can make, different value systems that we can agree to. It cannot be big at the moment because we really have no clue what we are getting ourselves into. We are in between one that's dying and another that hasn't been born yet. So very similar to the space that we find ourselves on our inner journey, right? We get
Yeah.
lost somewhere on that change journey. We
That's
forget
it.
the old, we start to reject the old, then we start to experiment with the new, then we get confused, then we are not sure that we can trust our intuition, that we can, find a way to operate. We start with all this, oh, but how I'm going to make money, oh, but how I'm going to do this, but I don't know how to solve for that, right? That's a reality of what the space looks like. And we need to allow that. We need to allow to get lost with the system change as well. And so I think all we are capable at the moment is acceptance of that, acceptance and grief for maybe what is dying. That's okay. This whole system, the civilization, if you want, the way we used to live is dying. It's a massive thing. It will not come back. I spent 30 years grieving for something I have lost as a child. We are all grieving collectively, right? Just look at the
Yeah.
language when you read news. There is a lot of grief, even if you're not involved in a conflict at the moment. There is a lot of grief, collective grief. Something is dying in our collective consciousness, and we
Yeah.
need to allow it. But at the same time, We need to connect with the beauty that's out there. We need to connect with a sense of possibility. We need to connect with people in our communities, and we need to start creating something, not
Yeah.
to create for sake of creating a solution, what Cage used to call purposeless play. That's what we need right now. We need to learn how to play for the sake of playing,
I love that. Yes,
for the sake
absolutely.
of playing, to bring possibility, to bring hope, to bring community, sense of love and community and connection back. We are not ready for solutions. We don't need solutions. We need to accept each other. We need to end the
Yeah.
war. When we end the war within, we end the war with others. That's
Yeah.
what we need to do. So there are all these things that need to happen before we are ready for the next step. And
Absolutely.
it's not a linear journey. I think that it will be iterative process. I'm a huge believer in that, which is why I'm saying these experiments, safe spaces in which these experiments can happen now, are also giving us the data of, okay, look, this community in Portugal, or community in Sweden, or community in Germany or in New Zealand is doing something interesting. What can we learn from that? How can that inform where we go collectively? Right? How can we
Yeah.
share the knowledge, experiences? How does that affect me? Right? As in my inner journey. Every time that we host a experience, we are changed by that experience. We are not some,
Yeah.
Uber gurus or teachers who are there on in some position of power. It's a co-creation process that I often say starts even before people assemble. The moment you
Yeah.
pose the question, the co-creation starts. You're co-creating with universe, you're co-creating with yourself, you're then co-creating with a group. If you're not changed by that experience yourself, then something is wrong
Yeah.
in how
And
that experience has happened.
exactly. And Sonia, I think it really, we both know it takes a lot of humbleness and grace to allow that, right?
Yeah.
Because we used to have such a hierarchical system. Even the
Mm.
idea of a guru is somebody who sits on the mountain and knows everything and answers all
Yeah.
your questions, and you still wonder how to get there. It's not like that anymore. Now we humans all around the world start discovering this inner flame, this inner spark of power, and that we are able to help ourselves, that we're able to, as you said, play and discover and let go of the domination of the mind to wake up our hearts and activate
Yeah.
our inner power through exactly that space, our heart, our
Yeah.
soul. And when we do that, that is a complete alchemy. That's a
Mm.
complete change of perspective. You open up your awareness, your consciousness to completely different levels of possibility. And let's talk about this because I know recently in our last phone call, we talked about the heart and the power of the heart. And you already gave so many examples of, stepping out of the system is a part of getting into your heart space without needing to judge it or needing to
Mm.
change it, but just saying, okay, there are other solutions outside of the system. Let's get curious and let's explore. That's a place that's in the heart, because you
Mm.
wouldn't be able to say that from grace if you weren't connected to your heart. Same thing like you shared about your ex-husband. Same thing like you shared about your dad, your journey to integrate, the grief of leaving your home country and coming
Mm.
back full circle and saying, oh wow, yes, I still agree with those values, and now let's take the good stuff and build something for the future that you, your children, us all can
Mm.
feel safer in. And not just doing it for yourself, but you say, okay, let's like push the ball forward,
Yeah.
even though I'm not there for all of the future. So tell me a little bit about your heart journey and how you maybe even specifically started to awaken your heart, because it's like a very emotional journey. It's a painful journey, no?
Well, it started with falling in love with someone and getting my heart utterly broken, and then realizing that I need to stay in that space of being heartbroken for the rest of my life. I just don't call it heartbreak anymore. As Cohen used to sing, this is cracks are where the light comes in. And I truly believe that, because the biggest heartbreak of my life is not, my divorce or failed relationships or things that have happened even with my country is having to let go of my own story that I have believed for so long
Mm.
and learning how to love myself for the first time, how to be really gentle and kind with myself the way I am now with my children as well. But it was easier to be that with them than to be that with myself. So what is that telling us, right?
Yeah.
And the more I have been softening up, the more my heart has been leading, the more I have been learning how to love without really expecting anything, to love just for sake of loving, right? There is that beautiful sentence, I can't remember the name of the French philosopher, that said, faith is not whether you believe in God or not, or something like that, but
Mm-hmm.
knowing that love without reward is valuable,
Mm. That's important. Can you say that
right?
again?
Love without reward is valuable.
Mm.
We are so obsessed with being loved, but how loving are we of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and others? How easy it is for us to put boundaries and to withhold our love if something doesn't go our way.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want us to start looking in ourselves. What is in here? That is what
Yeah.
I control. I have no control over how world reacts.
Mm-hmm.
I have no control over how my children react, and I have given birth to them. But I have control over how I react. Whether
Yeah.
I react from my heart, from my openness, from my love, regardless of who is on the other side, regardless
Yeah.
of how much they have hurt me. Or do I close off again and react from defensiveness and from ego and from having to protect my story?
Yeah.
What's more important?
Yeah. That's self-responsibility, huh?
So it's not one big decision. I think this is also important to say. Big decisions are relatively easy in life. You jump, it takes a bit of
Mm.
courage. You create a momentum and then you jump. But it's the small decisions every day.
Mm.
It's when you're triggered on a daily basis by your mother, by your father, by your kids, by your sister, by your colleague, right? How you react
Mm.
in those moments
Yeah. That's
is
all the
all that
difference.
matters. It makes all the difference. It's not
Mm.
us and them. They wouldn't exist if we didn't exist. We are
Mm.
reflecting to each other, right? If someone in your
Mm.
life is acting from a place of unkindness, if they're judgmental, if they're treating you badly, is there something in you as well that's reacting to that? And how are you reacting back to that? Are you creating more conflict or not? Because I
Mm-hmm.
have seen examples all around me. My dad has never been like this growing up. My dad was strict. He would stop speaking to us when he didn't like what we used to do. I absolutely grew up thinking I'm being punished on a daily basis. Silence is horrible when you're a girl, especially. And
Yeah.
this is a
True.
man. This is supposed to be a man that's modeling everything for you. I mean, I'm not even going to go into failed relationships because of this model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that man in my life can now become this spiritual guru and my little Buddha, full of wisdom and
Mm.
love, who's kissing me and hugging me and calling me sweetheart, and he hasn't been in therapy, he hasn't done meditation, he hasn't learned how to breathe, he hasn't done anything. All that is different is I have opened my heart. I have stopped trying to protect myself from him.
Mm-hmm.
At one point on this journey, I have decided to go all in with my dad, with my kids.
Mm.
No more, I'm going to, pretend to be this person. I'm going to give you my successful side so that you can go and be proud of me. No, I'm going to show you what
Yeah.
I look like, mascara running down the cheeks, unsuccessful, failing, no clue what I'm doing, heartbroken.
Mm. Mm.
And I'm going to trust that you're going to love me, but I'm going to know that even if you don't love me, you know what? I love me. I love me and I'm at peace.
Mm.
And if
And
you don't love
that's
that,
powerful.
that's on you. That's on you. That means you're not ready to love me because you're not ready to love yourself. There is
Hmm.
nothing I can do to change that. But how I react and with how much love and care and kindness I meet you and everyone else,
Mm.
that's on me. That's a choice I'm going to make every day. However, the world perceives me, however silly they think I am, however childish, people sometimes, and even people very close to me, look at me in amazement of, oh my God, you're so kind. Like, kindness has become this thing we should be feeling sorry for each other. Like, you're a
Hmm.
bit naive, world doesn't
Hmm.
work like that. Well, maybe, but my world works like that. And that's power.
And yeah,
That's real
exactly,
power.
exactly, Sonia. And you know what it is more than powerful? It's brave. It's brave
It
to
is.
trust your heart and to be seen in a heartful, in a warm, in a kind way, because most of the world, unfortunately, is yet to discover that and is too afraid to be seen in this kind, heart loving
Yeah.
way, right? I remember myself, and probably you as well, in the past, when I felt like I cannot be so nice, or so kind, because it's not appreciated.
Mm,
But if we don't lead with our heart and dare to be brave and stand in this kindness and open heartedness, who will? If we don't start, who will? And we will never have peace if we don't dare to keep our hearts open, right?
I
So,
agree.
you taking
I
that step towards your family, to your dad. When we change, they change. There's no
agree.
other way. And we always expect for the others to change first, for my mom to change first and my dad to change first. I had this expectation in the past for sure. But then I realized I just needed to let go of the expectation that they will ever change. And guess what happened? They changed, right? I remember when you told me, wow, the relationship with my dad changed completely. I was so happy for you because it's such a healing. And you
Yeah.
created it by working on yourself. So, everybody listening, all you got to do is put your head down, go inside, and you'll find all the
And it's not like
answers.
I went in with the idea that I'm going to fix him or
Yeah.
that I'm going to fix even the relationship. All I stopped doing is pretending to be someone I wasn't.
Mm,
I stopped protecting myself from the situation, from the relationship. I created space from which I can see that this was available before,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If I knew how to access this part of my dad before, it was there. He didn't know how to access it, but he knows now because he's reacting to what I'm offering.
Yeah. And that's the journey of life also, because everybody listening right now, when you feel like, okay, tomorrow I drop all my masks and tell my mother I am this or that, and they just have to deal with it, and I expect them now to like me, is also not how it goes, right, Sonia? It's
Of course
it's
not.
like
It's
a
not. But
journey, and you need to
it's a
start feeling
journey, and
comfortable.
yes, and I'm still gonna have bad days. I'm still gonna have
Yeah.
days when I have doubt, and when it's too hard,
Yeah.
when you run into, too much, and you need time to process, and your heart is like, okay, but I don't know that I have more courage. There were moments last year when I felt like the life was throwing everything at me, including the whatever the expression in, kitchen sink and all the appliances. When I was like, okay, it's too much. It's too much. Like, give me a breather.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of my healers said, God, universe, I can't remember how he called the force, but he said, must love you a lot when it's giving you so much feedback in real time.
I love this. So, everybody, if you're having a hard time, be
Okay,
grateful. You're
okay.
doing something right.
Maybe there is something there. Maybe there is something there. But it's
Yeah.
not easy. When you have spent the lifetime protecting yourself, living with a mask, it's petrifying. It's absolutely petrifying. Early on in the journey, I remember the first time I met a friend in London and I showed up with no mask. I think he was the first person where I dropped everything and I left the coffee shop, and the inner chatter was, what did you do? What possessed you to behave in that way? Why would you tell him all of that? I was so full of fear, so full of judgment, so full of, yeah, like I'm going to be rejected, right? This is what we are so fearful. But what we are doing when we are in fear of rejection is we are rejecting.
Yeah.
By putting up the wall, by living behind the mask, we are not just rejecting the most amazing parts of ourselves, we are rejecting the other person as well, right?
And we also learn to not trust the other person with being able to hold us in our honesty, in
Yes,
our authenticity, right? We just decided, oh, they will not understand, they will not like, but this is just an old pattern of fear
but
of
it's also
rejection that
massive
we still
conditioning.
carry.
It's a massive conditioning that's systemic, right?
Yeah.
That we talked about it. As women, especially, we have been trained from early age to fit in, to behave in a certain way in order to be rewarded, right? To be of use, to be more helpful than our brothers or our cousins, to, show that we are gonna earn our way, right? If I
Yeah.
do everything that is expected of me, maybe someone will, throw me a crumb. Well, you know what? It's not a very nice way to live. It's definitely not very loving towards ourselves to be that way. So I think this is a massive change. It absolutely doesn't happen over time, and it's not linear. It's, try and fail and become a bit more courageous, and at some point, and maybe it's also to do with age, you just stop giving a fuck. I'm sorry, but
Thank you so much. I would really love to ask you before we close, as a mother, I think this is also a very important part of you, right? And
mm,
for some mothers or mothers to be, or parents to be listening, as a mother, what is the most important thing that you want to give your children on this path? And then the second part of the question, what is one advice that you want to give forward to other parents that maybe right now, they have achieved all the societal things on the list that are supposed to be achieved? Like you have that house and you have those children and you have that corporate job and the car and the dog, but you realize inside, I don't know if I still want this. And you may feel so much responsibility for your family that you would put yourself underneath and not take yourself as a priority because you're worried too much that everything will crumble. What would you say to those people?
well, I'm honest about my journey as a parent. It has changed dramatically over the last 8 years, but my daughter, I think, has had a very different journey with me than her brother. He got an easy way with me the last 8 years. He was young enough to benefit from much more from what was happening. She was raised by, a lady that was in charge, that was in control, that, sacrificed, and that had this huge burden of responsibility on her shoulders. And it was an easy thing to see, to witness, especially as a girl, to try and compete and feel like you're failing because your mother can do everything and you feel like you can't compete with that. It's a horrible burden to put on your children. It's a horrible burden to put this responsibility, this sacrifice that we, all these choices that we are making. It's not love that we are giving them when we do that. Just think about it. It's really not love. We are killing ourselves, and what we are modeling as a behavior, as an example, is unloving, right? We are giving
Yeah.
them to carry the burden of something that was given to us by our parents. It kills me when I see my daughter repeat some of that now, and I can't do anything about it. All I can do is continue on this path and be as authentic as possible and model to both of them on a daily basis so they know there is a different path. There is a path on which you can live with an open heart, which you can lead with an open heart, where you can make, choices that are maybe controversial in this society. I'm a very different parent now than the parents that are in their, purview, the parents of the friends of my daughter's boyfriend. I'm on a different planet altogether, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm giving my permission. I'm giving my children permission to do the same. And my
Mm-hmm.
son has told me that years ago. By me saying, I don't know, and trying and experimenting and doing all these crazy things, I have given him permission not to know as well. And he has embraced it with so much gusto. It's just incredible for me to see. He has decided last year not to go to university. He has changed his mind 7 times over the summer. He then ended up taking a gap year and finding a little job and going and volunteering. He has grown so much. It fills my heart with so much joy to see
Mm.
this young man who is growing in his own right. And I'm just there to love him. There is nothing else I'm supposed to do. If I don't have money for something, that's okay. But if I don't have love to give, then what am I
Mm.
giving as a parent? I'm giving a burden, I'm giving expectations, I'm putting demand, I'm giving my fear. I think that's, if I can give one advice, don't give your fear to your children. My dad used to say, "Oh, but I'm saying this because I'm so scared for you." No, keep your fear for yourself.
Mm.
Don't let your children carry your fear. How are they gonna try things and really embrace change in their life if all they have in the back of their mind is your sentences, your fears, your conditioning? I look
Mm.
at a lot of, my children's friends who are choosing to study things that they're completely non interested in because their parents, out of fear, out of care, what we identify with care, told them, oh, but if you study law, or if you study finance, you're going to find a job. If you go into art, not so much. So you have all these kids who are confused, who don't know who they are, who are not
Mm.
choosing out of heart, out of inspiration, out of trying to do something for themselves. But they're carrying, families' burdens and all these expectations because this is what you're supposed to do. My parents have suffered, so I'm now supposed to suffer. That's what it means to be an adult. No, it doesn't. Being an
Mm.
adult has nothing to do with getting a good job or buying a house or even getting married and having children. It would be so
Yeah.
easy if it was. But actually, what we have is a lot of people who have never really grown up. To
Yeah.
grow up
I
means
agree.
to get real about your inner journey, to accept all parts of yourself, to end that war, as we have said, to be able to have difficult conversations. How many adults do you really know? How many adults do you really know? How many people are ghosting you at the moment? Because I have a long list of people
Mm.
who are unable to tell me that they don't want to work with me, or they don't want to have me in their life, or they just even can't be bothered to answer email.
Mm-hmm.
Those are adults? Really? Seriously? Oh, we cannot make a choice, we cannot make decision because I have a mortgage and I have a job and there are all these burdens. That's not adult type behavior. It's your life. It's the only life you have. My dad tells me every day when I go to see him how short life is. He's 90. It's like this.
Mm.
I can't believe I'm 54. In my heart, I'm 18. I can't believe that my children are now grown up. It has
Mm-hmm.
happened. It was in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Blink of an eye. So what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for
Mm.
someone to give us permission to live?
Yeah, this is a question I want you guys to take home for yourself. Maybe you're driving your car right now, or you're sitting somewhere at home with a cup of tea. What are you living your life for? What are you waiting for? Whose permission are you waiting for? Contemplate this because this is a really good thing to think about. And if you want, share it with us in the comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else, feel free to reach out to us via Instagram DMs. All the information are in the show notes below, how to reach Sonja, how to reach me. And before we close up, I just want to ask Sonja to share a little more about where people can find you and what's the next events that are going on and anything you want us to know.
Well, first of all, I want to share this little piece of art that I did last week.
Yes, true. We didn't talk about this. So this
I know
is
we
a
didn't talk about
wonderful
art
piece
at
of
all.
art.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
tapestry I made last week. I'm experimenting with tapestry now as well. I only started to do art 3, 4 years ago, so it was definitely one of the biggest surprises of my life, because
Yeah.
again, this wasn't something that I thought was available to me. And when it happened, it blew not just the roof of the house, but the whole house. The whole thing just came crumbling down. And I
Mm,
realized that if this is possible, then a lot of other things are possible too. And I
yeah.
have allowed myself to really use my imagination and my dreams for whatever I want. And I want to approach the rest of my life with the same curiosity, whatever is it that I'm doing, whether I'm coaching, running retreats, organizing these beautiful gatherings. I want that playfulness and creativity to be at the center of what I'm doing, believing that literally whatever we want is possible. It's up to us to co-create and to make those choices that we have been talking about. So if you're
Absolutely.
interested in learning more, I think the links are going to be in the show's notes. So I
Mm,
have a blog, so you can, read more about my journey. I publish regularly. The Revillage website has all the information about upcoming gatherings. We have one more next week, and then we are going to start thinking about what the next phase of the project looks like from September. I have lots of new ideas and new places where we want to go and try to run these experiments. And if you're interested in my art, a lot of information is on Instagram, or you can just get in touch.
thank you so much for sharing all that. You have to come on again, obviously, because we have so much more to talk about. And then next time we go
Definitely.
also into detail of Sonja's art story, because this is going to be an interesting one as well. And I'm sure a lot of you are curious about, she discovered this new gift or probably old gift inside of her and she went for it. How did she do that? So stay tuned for that episode as well. And I just want to say that your intention of curiosity and play is visible within everything that you do. And that's just, absolutely beautiful, I think. And I just want to say that because I see it in your art, I see it in the colors that you use, I see it in how you express yourself, how you navigate your healing journey, how you navigate raising your children, how you navigate business, and how you organize and facilitate. And it's just a joy to be a friend and an honor to interview you today and for you to share your story with us today. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I would love you to just show us the artwork one more time, just so everybody gets to see it one more time. And if you're listening on Spotify or somewhere, please check out Sonja's Instagram where all her art is posted, or try move over to YouTube so you can see the artwork now. It looks amazing, guys. Look at the colors.
You know what?
Amazing.
If I ever have a moment when I have any doubt, all I have to do is just look at my art and know that the most innocent, most creative, most childlike part of me is communicating to adult me on a daily basis, saying, all is good. Just trust me.
Mm,
All is good. When adult doesn't have the answers anymore, when the reason fails, when the experience is not enough, this is what speaks to us, the childlike curiosity and playfulness. We all know how to do that. We just need to allow it.
amen. Absolutely. And
So
we're going to leave you with this. Thank you so much, Sonja. Everybody, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, share, like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review because it always helps to bring new episodes to you with wonderful people that we interview. And I love you. Take good care. And I talk to you soon. Ciao.
thank you.